We have a crisis in the world, tremendous crisis, and also crisis in our consciousness, in us. I see the urgency of change, radical revolution, mutation in the mind. I see it. It is necessary. There is complete quietness of the mind, and that which is silent has vast space. Only then that which is nameless comes into being.
This is Urgency of Change, the Krishnamurti podcast. We cannot live without cooperation. Life is relationship. Life is cooperation. You and I cannot exist without cooperation, but to cooperate there must be freedom. Hello and welcome to episode 231 of Urgency of Change. Each episode of the Krishnamurti podcast features carefully selected clips from the archives. The aim is to represent different aspects of Krishnamurti's radical approach to many of the issues and questions we all face in our lives. This week's theme is cooperation. Upcoming themes are fragmentation, symbols, and perception. This is a podcast from Krishnamurti Foundation Trust, based at Brockwood Park in the UK, which is also home to the Krishnamurti Retreat Centre. Situated in the beautiful countryside of the South Downs National Park, the Krishnamurti Centre offers retreats individually and in groups. The focus is on inquiry in light of Krishnamurti's teachings. Please visit krishnamurticentre.org.uk for more information. You can also find our regular Krishnamurti quotes and videos on Instagram, TikTok and Facebook at Krishnamurti Foundation Trust. If you enjoyed the podcast, please leave a review or rating on your podcast app, which helps our visibility. This week's episode on cooperation has 8 sections. This first extract is from Krishnamurti's 6th talk in Madras 1965 and is titled, "The Only Cooperation We Know."
The act of listening is always in the present. It's a movement, always in the present. And the moment you translate what you hear in terms of your own understanding, of your own tradition, of your own culture, if you have a culture, merely prevents listening. If one is listening, then one can go on in an extraordinary movement, endlessly. Not only to listening to the speaker, but listening to everything, to those crows, to that bus, listening to the movement of the breeze among the leaves, seeing the sunset. It's a total act, it's not a partial act. And if we could listen that way, all our life, not just for a few minutes, right through our life, listening to every sound, not only the sound of a voice to which one is familiar, but also listen to every movement of thought and word. Then life becomes an endless action of learning and listening. And as we are going to talk over together, share together, this love and meditation, one has to listen, not only to the words, but to much more than words. not only on the surface, but beyond the surface. The quality of love is cooperation. We only know one kind of cooperation. Cooperation through reward or punishment, or through necessity. That's the only cooperation we know. Cooperation that is working together to produce a thing is either through gain or through loss, or through the conformity to authority. The authority being an ideal, a tyranny, or a person, an example, and so on. That's the only cooperation which we know. If you observe yourself, you will see it. When you go to the office, in everything where we have to do things together, there is this cooperation through reward or punishment and of necessity. Such cooperation is really primitive. It's not cooperation at all. Because we must cooperate. Otherwise we can't exist. There is no society, no relationship, there is no cooperation. And that's what's happening in this country. There is no cooperation. Each group, each part of the country is thinking of itself. And this way of fragmentation, which is so familiar, which is so tribal, which is so nationalistic, is obviously a state of non-cooperation and therefore disintegration, a destruction, a deterioration. And we can only live when there is cooperation, working together. And is it possible to work together without punishment, without reward, without the compulsion of circumstances? And it seems to me, by the very nature of that word and the meaning of that word, cooperation can only exist when there is affection, when there is love. And that ceases the moment there is a vested interest, there is a tribal activity of a petty little mind conditioned by a particular language, by a particular country, by a particular section. And so most of us who talk of cooperation are very primitive people. Because our cooperation is based on fear, necessity, gain, and pain. And it seems to me to really cooperate, work together, demands a great deal of affection, a great deal of this generic word of which we are shy in using, love. So, we are going this evening to find out, to discover for ourselves the state of the mind that knows the meaning and the nature of that word. For it is this one act that will liberate man, that will completely bring about a mutation. This sense of affection, this love, this quality, which cannot be cultivated, which cannot be practiced, which cannot be thought about. But it must happen as naturally as breathing, as fully, with great joy and delight as a sunset.
The second extract is from the 6th talk in Saanen 1968 and is titled Cooperation Needs Humility.
You speak of the great need of cooperation in this broken up world. If I feel deeply that I want to cooperate with a new school and this new school doesn't want me, who is wrong? Me or the school? And how can I get myself in there? I don't know. I'm sorry, I can't answer this question. So we said, cooperate. We said cooperation is necessary to live in this world at all. Not in this broken up world brought about by politicians, by nationalities, by religious divisions. Those prevent a cooperation. And in ourselves, we don't really want to cooperate. Because when we use that word cooperation, we want to cooperate with what we think is cooperation. Which is we have an ideology, an idea what cooperation is. An image, a picture, a formula, which obviously prevents us from cooperating. And there is this new school. I want to cooperate with it. And the people who are guiding it say, sorry, you can't come in here because you're not capable. You can't teach. You may want to teach, you may want to help us. Help us in another way. But to teach requires a great deal of education. The educator has to be educated. But if you insist that you must come into the school and teach, look after children, this or that, and your very insistence is your self-expression. Follow this up slowly. And your self-expression is a form of pleasure. And you are seeking to gain pleasure in cooperation. And therefore it's not cooperation. If I want to help the school, I help it in, not only I want gardener there. You follow? We don't want to become gardeners there. We want to be somebody. And that's always our desire. To be somebody, to recognize that we are to be recognized that we are somebody, and all the rest of that business. Cooperation means humility. No, you don't see that. Humility. And you cannot have humility if you have an ideology, a formula, an image about yourself.
The third extract is from the first discussion at Brockwood Park in 1974 and is titled Thought Prevents Cooperation.
This has been one of the problems of human beings. They have gone so far. People have demanded this. I mean, really, people who have gone very, very deeply into meditation, into a whole question of, they say, look, thought has its limitation. And is it possible to go, is there something beyond? You can't answer that question, say yes or no. Therefore, one must understand completely the whole area of thought. The thought that has created the me, the psychological me, the thought that has created the divisions between the Jew, the Arab, the British, the English, the French, the German, the communist, the socialist, the Mao. And the thought which prevents cooperation, you follow? Which wants cooperation, but yet it does everything to prevent the cooperation of nations to solve all our problems. So thought, from the ancient of days, from the Greeks, with their idea that thought is measure, thought is time, and you need measure. And all our technological development is based on measure, on thought. And one sees this entirely. And then one says, as long as one lives there, in that area, no problems will be solved. Right? I don't know if you feel that way. I'm going to show you. We're going to investigate that, sir. We are to investigate it now. As long as the mind lives within that area, we shall not solve the problems of human beings. We shall have more inflation, more wars, more division, the British, the communists, the French, you follow? And there will be no cooperation between the nations. And you need cooperation to solve this problem of human existence, because we are destroying the earth. You understand all this?
The fourth extract is from Krishnamurti's first talk in Bombay 1964 and is titled To Cooperate is to Care.
Life is a relationship. To live in this world, you must be related. Otherwise, you can't exist in isolation. To be related means also cooperation. Cooperation, that is working together. You cannot work together if one dominates the other. If one has a particular idea and forcing the other to accept it. Cooperation can only exist when there is real affection, sympathy, pity, a sense of togetherness, which doesn't exist at all in this country. Ideologically, yes, that is, in the sense of words, that we must work together, that we are brothers, that there is one life, all that nonsense that we repeat endlessly. But actually, factually, in every moment of our life, it doesn't exist. So, we don't know what it means to cooperate. We know what it means to cooperate with the state from which we are going to gain a livelihood, or with an idea for a utopia, because that's going to profit us. Or we know cooperation under authority, which is compulsion, conformity. But we're talking about cooperation which is entirely different. That is, cooperation comes only when you care. Care, which is a very simple word, but which has a very deep meaning, to care for somebody, to care for a tree, for a bird. Because we do not care. If there was this sense of caring, please, I'm not moralizing. We must leave that to the politicians. But I'm merely pointing out to you how important it is to live in this world with care. To care for the room in which you are living. To care how you eat, what your behavior, what your manners are. Please, I'm going to go into this, because if you don't understand the meaning of this word care, care how you dress, how you talk, what your gestures are, how you treat your neighbor, how you look at another, how you educate your children to care. Because from that sense of caring, there comes sympathy, there comes affection. And you can go with that, ride on that affection, and you will know what love is. But if you have not that sense of caring from the very beginning, how you use the word, how you speak to another, don't brush all this aside and say, yes, we know all this. We have heard this, we have read about it, we have listened to this thing that we must love another 100,000 times. But we are stating something which is truth. If you don't understand truth in that little word and comprehend, listen to that word and understand it. Because that word means being sensitive. You know, to be sensitive to another, to be sensitive to the skies, to the birds, to the trees, to the beauty of a sunset, the sun on a lovely cloud. If you're not sensitive to that, completely, vulnerably, you will never know what love is. You may have married, you may have children, you may have relations, but you will have no love. And that is the very beginning of reality, is at the first step, that is to care.
The fifth extract is from the seventh talk in Bombay 1964 and is titled Freedom to Cooperate.
There is no help from anybody at any time. And that's a dreadful thing to realize for oneself. And you have to realize the appalling, frightening fact that you, as a human being, have to stand completely on your own feet. There are no Upanishads, no Gitas, no leaders, nothing that can save you. You have to save yourself. You know what that does when you realize that fact? And it is a fact. When you actually realize that fact, either you sink further in your corruption, or that very fact gives you tremendous energy to break through the network of psychological structure of society, break through, shattering everything. And then you will never seek help because you are free. A free man, a man who is not frightened, who has a clear mind, whose heart is vital, strong, energetic. He doesn't want help. And we, you and I, we have to stand alone, completely, totally, with no help from anybody, because you have sought help politically, religiously, from the gurus, socially, every way, and they've all betrayed you. There have been revolutions, political, economic revolutions, communism, social revolutions. They are not the answer. They cannot help you. Because they bring more tyranny, more slavery. It's only when you demand complete freedom and sustain that freedom, then only you will find through operational approach the reality. And it is that reality that will set man free, and nothing else. And it is one of the most difficult things to realize this, that you have to stand completely alone by yourself, entirely. Because it's only the man who is free that can cooperate. And it is the man who is free that says, I will not cooperate. Because cooperation implies, as it is generally understood, cooperating round a person, round an idea, or for an utopia. Round authority of a person or the authority of an idea as the state. If you observe that kind of cooperation, it is not cooperation at all. It is mutual benefit, and when the authority changes, you change in order to derive your benefit from that. So it's a compulsive form of adjustment. We are talking of authority, of cooperation, of something entirely, which is entirely different. Because man must cooperate. We can't live without cooperation. Life is relationship. Life is cooperation. You and I cannot possibly exist without cooperation. But to cooperate, there must be freedom. You must be free and I must be free to cooperate. Freedom doesn't mean doing what we like and being ruthless and all the rest of the stupid reactions connected with that word. Because it's only the man who is free to love, who has no jealousy, no hate, nothing he wants for himself, for his family, for his race, for his group. It's only such a man who is free and knows the full significance of love and beauty. It's only that man can cooperate. So, what is necessary is to understand this freedom. Thought does not bring about this freedom. Thought is never free. Thought is merely a reaction to the accumulated knowledge as memory, as experience. Therefore it can never free man. And yet everything that we do, every action, every motive, every urge is based on thought. So one has to see for oneself the significance of thought, where it is necessary and where it is poison.
The sixth extract is from Krishnamurti's fourth talk in Madras 1964 and is titled Cooperation and Passion.
Most of us have petty minds, small, narrow, fixed minds in a petty groove that runs along very smoothly until there is some kind of accident, and then there is a trouble and get back to the another routine. And the petty mind cannot face problems. It has innumerable problems. The whole problem of living. And it invariably translates these extraordinarily significant problems of life into its own petty, narrow, limited understanding and tries to twist this enormous stream of existence of life into its own petty little channels. And that's what we are confronted with now. Probably always, but it seems to be much more so now, where the challenge is much greater and demands a response equally intense, equally strong, equally living. And this sense of passion is not a thing that you cultivate easily by taking some kind of drug, get into a hypnotic state about some ideal, and so on. This passion comes naturally, must. And without passion, I'm using the word purposely, that word. For most of us, passion is implied only with regard to one thing, sex. Or you suffer passionately and try to resolve that suffering. But I'm using the word passion in the sense a state of mind, a state of being, a state of your inward core, if there is such thing, that feels very strongly, that is highly sensitive, that is sensitive both to dirt, to squalor, to poverty, to the enormous riches and the corruption, to the beauty of a tree and a bird, to a flow of water, and to a pond that has the evening sky upon it. To feel all this intensely, strongly, it's necessary. Because without passion, life becomes empty, shallow, and without much meaning. If you can't see the beauty of a tree and love that tree, care for it intensely, you're not living. And I'm using the word deliberately. You're not living. Because with us, with Indians in this country, probably, religion is utterly divorced from beauty. Again, without being sensitive to the extraordinary beauty of life, the beauty of a face, the line of a building, the shape of a tree, a bird on the wing, and the morning song. If one is not aware of all that, feel that very strongly, obviously, life, which is cooperation and relationship, has no meaning at all. It doesn't function mechanically. So, I would like to talk about that this evening. That passion is not devotion, sentimentalism. It has nothing to do with sensation. The moment passion has a motive or aroused by a motive for something, it becomes pleasure and pain. Please see this. I don't have to go into details now because we want to go into something more further into this thing. If passion is aroused sexually or for some purpose, aroused, has a cause, has an end in view, then in that so-called passion there is frustration, there is pain, there is the demand for a continuity of pleasure, and therefore the fear of not having it and the avoidance of pain. So a passion with a motive or arouse invariably ends in despair, pain, frustration, anxiety. We are talking about passion without motive, which is quite a different thing. Whether it exists or not is for you to find out. But we know that passion aroused ends in despair, in anxiety, in pain, or the demand for a particular form of pleasure. And in that there is conflict, there is contradiction, there is a constant demand. We are talking of a passion that is without motive. There is such passion. It's nothing to do with personal gain, loss, all the petty little demands of a particular pleasure and the avoidance of pain. Because without that passion, you cannot possibly cooperate. And cooperation is life, which is relationship. Not cooperation for an idea, or you cooperate because the state drives you, or for a reward, or the avoidance of a punishment, or working for some economic ideal, utopia, or working together because of some ideal. Those for us does not, or definitely is not conducive to cooperation. I'm talking of the spirit of cooperation. Because if we do not cooperate, there can't be relationship. Life demands it, that you and I cooperate, do things together, work together, feel together, live together, see things together. And this togetherness must be at the same time, at the same intensity, at the same level. Otherwise there is no togetherness. And as one observes, more and more in this rather sad and destructive world, the mind is becoming mechanical, routine, bound, technologically held in a narrow groove. And therefore, gradually, this sense of intensity, the feeling strongly about anything, fades away. And if you cannot feel strongly, obviously the mind is insensitive, dull, fearful, and all the rest of it. So, the passion we are talking about, which is really quite extraordinary if you go into it, which is not tinged with suffering, which has no self-pity, which has no sense of fear or achievement. It's a state of being.
The seventh extract is from the sixth talk in New Delhi, 1963, and is titled, "The World Needs Cooperation."
Please observe your own minds in operation rather than merely casually listen to the speaker. Because if one is not aware of one's own process of thought, you will not be able to follow or be able to criticize with an extraordinary passion. Because passion is necessary. And there is no authority when there is passion. And as most of us do accept, we are mostly yes-sayers. And when we do accept, all feeling is made dull. We are not affected deeply. The tree, the squalor, the poverty, the ignorance, those in power, who destroy. We have no feeling when we observe all these things about us. And for most of us, feeling is suffering. To feel very strongly about something. And that very feeling breeds sorrow. When you see this poverty, the utter carelessness of people, whether they be high politicians or the low, cunning operators in a particular party, they have no feeling. And when you do feel, if you have observed yourself, there is a great deal of sorrow involved in it, grief. Not only when you feel about your own particular little sorrow of not having a good position, of being insulted by your boss every day, or by the loss of a particular person. It's not only there, but the feeling as a human being for the whole world, for another human being. To see how power destroys, corrupts, and to feel very strongly, passionately about these things. And if to feel passionately, every form of acceptance must be put aside. And it is only when you begin to feel very strongly, out of that feeling, there is love. It is only in that state that you can cooperate. Because we live by cooperating, and we destroy each other when there is no cooperation. And that's what's happening throughout the world. We have intellectually, verbally cultivated our brains, our thoughts, but we do not feel strongly. And when we do feel very strongly, we do the most stupid, silly things, trying to convert people to a particular form of belief, or joining a peace march, this or that. I'm talking of something entirely different. We are talking about feeling for itself without sorrow. Because the moment there is sorrow, there is the feeling that you must do something immediately. then that feeling loses in organization. You observe all this in yourself. And then the feeling gets dissipated, lost. And that love cannot be organized. And it's only a man who loves that can cooperate. And as the world needs cooperation, not according to a particular pattern. The feeling of cooperation, the necessity, the urgency to cooperate, not with the government or against the government, or with a particular party, or with a particular system. We cooperate when we agree. But our agreement is merely, generally, intellectual, verbal. Love does not agree. Love is not an idea with which you agree or disagree. You don't agree with the heat of the sun, it is there, burning, destroying, creating, making things new. So, as cooperation right through life, not at one level of life, but right through this feeling of working together efficiently, living together, not dividing the earth into yours and mine, into America, Russia, India, and all the stupid political and national linguistic divisions, but to feel together. And unfortunately, only hate brings us together. When you're attacked, then we all come together. But hate is not love. And it's only really a man who feels when he sees the squalor, the dirt on the road, feels the dearth, the inner poverty of these politicians, sees the utter cupidity of the saints and their followers. To feel for all this is part of meditation.
The final extract in this episode is from Krishnamurti's 7th talk in Madras 1964 and is titled Aloneness is a State of Cooperation.
So the religious mind is a mind that is alone. There is a difference between loneliness and aloneness. You cannot come to this aloneness if you have not understood completely the extraordinary nature of loneliness and gone through it. Understood it completely, tasted it, smelt it, be familiar with it, complete contact with it. Never a moment to avoid it. Either through sex, through various forms of avoidances. Be completely related to it. Not verbally, but actually. Because the word loneliness is not the fact. And what we are, most of us are frightened is the word, not the fact. Because the word separates the thought from the fact. So you have to understand the whole structure of the word and how we are slave to words. So all this demands tremendous energy. Not the religious mind is not the mind that escapes. Avoids the world, puts on a loincloth and becomes simple outwardly. The outward simplicity is mere exhibitionism. The inward simplicity is much more demanding, much more austere. It has no outward show. And without austerity, this inward austerity of understanding, not control, discipline, shaping thought after a pattern, but that pattern laid out by, it doesn't matter who it is. That pattern which demands suppression, obedience. I am talking the austerity that comes with self-knowing. And that is much more austere, because that demands precision. That demands reason. No fragmentary thinking. Constant watchfulness of every thought and every feeling. To be totally aware, so that there is a total action, not fragmentary action. Bureaucratic at one level, superstitious, ugly, brutal, silly, stupid at another level. Running off to a temple because your wife or your grandmother or somebody is crying or dying or you want more money. So, the religious mind is a mind that's completely alone. Aloneness is not isolation. It is the actual state of cooperation. You cannot cooperate if you are not alone. You cooperate only when there is a reward or punishment, when you are getting something, when you want to do something together, under an authority, under the umbrella of ideas, or you're working together for an economic or utopian ideal, then we say we are cooperating. You really are not cooperating. The idea attracts you. You are absorbed by the idea. And when you disagree with that idea, you break away. That's what's happening in all the communities. These utopian ideal societies, states, everybody is against another. The communist world is like that too. Though they started out to have an idealistic utopian world, the competition there is more brutal, more ruthless. And they're all trying to cooperate with the state. Communities, collective farms, forcing people to cooperate. Therefore, inwardly battling destroying, watching for ways and means where you can go against. That's not cooperation. Cooperation comes only when you are alone, when there is this sense of complete aloneness, which is the outcome, a natural outcome of a mind that is not, has no escape, no fear, no authority, and has understood this whole problem of energy. Then it is in a state of cooperation. And therefore, being in a state of cooperation, it is also will not cooperate. So, there is this sense of aloneness. Perhaps some of you have gone thus far, not verbally, but actually. Not as a stupid experience once in a while, but clear, right through. And therefore it's not a state to be achieved or a thing to be experienced, it's there. This aloneness is the state of mind when the mind has emptied itself of all its content. Because it's only then, as a room or a cup is useful, when it is empty, when it is not cluttered up with furniture, with ideas, with beliefs and with dogmas, when it is so completely empty, then only it can proceed. Then only out of this emptiness there is action. Action then is not an idea. Action then is not an approximation of an idea. Please follow all this. It is not an idea. Action then is not an idea. Action is not approximation to a pattern, idea, a thought, a symbol. You know, it's like a drum. I don't know. The other evening, there was a mridangam being played. It was empty. And every finger that touched gave the right note, gave the pure sound. But if that drum was full, there would be no noise. It would be discordant. And a mind that is not empty, not produced or made empty, not put together to be empty. It comes, that emptiness comes as the sunset comes of an evening, full of beauty, enchantment, and richness, that comes as naturally as the blossoming of a flower. When there is no fear, when there are no escapes, when there is no boredom, and when there is no seeking. And that's most important of all, no seeking. Because you can't find. The everlasting you can't find. That which is beyond time you cannot search out. It It may come to you. You cannot go to it. Because your minds are too shallow, petty, empty, full of ambition, fears, ugliness, distortions. Therefore that mind must empty itself. Not because it wants that. Because then you have the motive. Moment you have the motive, you have lost your energy. Therefore, it's only the mind that is completely empty, that is in a state of inaction, which is action. And it's only such a mind, being passionate, because it's only such a mind that can live with beauty. The beauty of a tree, and not get used to the tree. The beauty of a face, the beauty of an eye, of a smile, the ugliest, dirty road, the squalor, the dirt, the poverty, to live with it. It's only the passionate mind that can live with it and not get distorted. And it's only such a mind that is so completely empty. Such a mind is in a state of meditation. Don't translate it as samadhi and all the rest of the absurdities that you have learned. It is not that at all. It is something entirely different. The word is not the thing. If you have not found it for yourself, everything that somebody says is a lie to you. It doesn't matter who it is, Shankara, downwards or upwards. The truth you have to find out for yourself. You have to walk the path alone, and there is no path to truth. It's a vast ocean. It is not being charted. It is fathomless. You have to find it. Walk endlessly. And the endlessness becomes a torture, a thing that you are frightened if you have not understood the beginning of what we have been talking about. Then there is no time. Then you are living so completely in that emptiness is living so completely. The time is gone. There is only this present, this active present.